more effectively than individual therapy. Of course, lots of people still do it individual, one-on-one. More effective as a standalone than as an aftercare. When we talk about the mindfulness program, what we're doing right now, it's an aftercare program. So people that have already gone through the disease model intensive outpatient program, then they come to us. And sometimes they're going, you know, what you're talking about is a little bit different than what we learned in our regular treatment. Because there they said one drink is a total relapse, and you're saying there's a difference between a lapse and a relapse. So I think those kinds of issues do come up. So maybe that if you just have the whole program be cognitive behavioral, rather than mixing up the disease model, you probably get better results. Better results in inpatient settings, stronger effects on self-reported use and physiological measures, true for most addiction outcome studies, and found stronger treatment effects for substance abuse than for alcohol. And since then, there's been a lot of other trials, and we've reviewed the literature. Katie Litkowitz, one of my former students, now a colleague, continued to show that these results are what we're getting. So we were recently reviewed by SAMHSA's National Registry of Evidence-Based Programs and Practices. And now if you look up on the website for addiction treatment, relapse prevention is one of the programs that they endorse. So overall, we were getting good results. So we started to think, what else could we do to kind of increase the effectiveness of this approach? And meditation, many people were talking about it as a metacognitive coping skill, that people could learn to stand back, maybe observe urges and cravings, give them more of a sense of choice rather than giving in, instead of being on an automatic pilot and sort of a conditioned response, that they'd have more of a sense of choice. So that's why we started to look at meditation. So the first study that we did was this prison study. We called it Project Choices. I'd like to, there's a quote, a picture of Frankl, about what he talks about choice here. I'm just trying to find the exact quote. Viktor Frankl says, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. So it's basically saying, you know, most people with addiction problems, stimulus response, you know, give in, whatever you're going to do. But there is a space there, and if you had a chance to be more mindful, you might choose to do something different rather than falling off the wagon. So I just wanted to list the people that I've been working with on this project. What happened was this prison in Seattle, they called me, the psychologist at the prison said, we've been doing this meditation course for prisoners who wanted to take it, voluntary. And we've been finding that the prisoners who did take the meditation course have a lower recidivism rate than the people who didn't take it. That they were doing better in terms of re-arrest and so forth. Could you please come out and do a study so that we can evaluate this? So we applied to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, and they give us a grant to do a trial, which we are going to tell you about here, comparing prisoners that took the meditation course with those who chose not to take it. This was not a random assignment trial because the prison said, no, these are volunteers, so you can't randomly assign them. So we did a case match control. We matched the samples in terms of gender and age and criminal activity to see what the difference was. But of course, you can't control for why they decided to take the meditation in the first place. So mindfulness, John Kabat-Zinn's definition is pretty appropriate. A way of paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmental. Now, as you know, people with addiction problems, there's so much shame and blame and stigma and this whole thing about the moral model, you're doing the wrong thing. So there's a lot of judgmental attitudes that people have about themselves and that they're concerned about other people are going to see them that way. How can we move from that to a much more of an acceptance-based approach? Yes, you've got a problem here, but it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It means that you've got habits that have, you know, are challenging your health and mental health and other kinds of problems. Let's try and look at it from a different perspective, much more of an acceptance-based approach. So what happened in this prison, we'll see the video in a couple of minutes. They set aside a special part of the prison where the meditation classes were held. Now this is a 10-day Vipassana course. And it was developed originally in prisons in India by a meditation teacher, Goenka, S.N. Goenka. Some of you may know about his work. He does 10-day Vipassana retreats. Vipassana is a term, meditation term, as you know, it's seeing things the way they really are. That's what it's all about. And this is a 10-day course. It's held in silence. I mean, you can ask questions of the teacher and so forth, but you don't talk to the other people that are taking the course with you until the very last day. Then you can start talking a little bit. But otherwise, it's in silence. You start meditating at 4 o'clock in the morning. You go through the whole day of hours of sitting and walking meditation. And then in the evening, they give you Dharma talks. So Goenka comes on the video and says, here's what's going on. Now, it's not specifically directed at addiction, but it's dealing with things like urges and cravings from a Buddhist perspective. And so you'll see when you see the DVD with some of the prisoners, what they're finding out about themselves after they go through this course. Now they had the course separately for men and for women, so they were not co-ed courses. Goenka feels like it would be too much distraction that way, so we're just going to keep them separate genders. So basically what we did was compared Vipassana compared to treatment as usual. And in this prison, they actually had, unlike many prisons, quite a few other treatment programs. 12-step programs were available, individual counseling, parenting training, acupuncture, Tai Chi, all kinds of things, plus meditation. But we found that people that did the study, we found significant reductions in substance use for people that did the meditation course, significant less marijuana, crack cocaine, alcohol, and significantly fewer alcohol-related negative consequences, things like blacking out, falling down, getting into fights, sexual kinds of problems. And significant changes in psychosocial outcomes, decreased psychiatric symptoms, particularly depression. Of course, mindfulness has been used in the treatment of depression by Zindel Siegel and others. And we measured it here, and we found that, in fact, that showed significant reductions in depression. Increased internal drinking-related locus of control. If they did drink, there was more of a sense that I'm making a choice, and I can choose to drink or not to drink, rather than a kind of an external locus where everything that goes on makes you want to drink. And also increased optimism about their lives. So as we'll see when we see some of these prisoners talk about it, you can see there's a shift in terms of their self-acceptance that seemed to come from taking the course. So just looking at a few graphs, drinks per peak week, maximum amounts of alcohol. Looking at baseline before they came into the prison and then 3 months after they left. And we can see that in the green line, the people that got the meditation group were drinking significantly less than the control group, although both groups were showing improvement after going through the prison program. This is the SIP measure, alcohol-related negative consequences, blacking out, falling down, getting into other kinds of fights and other problems, significantly reduced, especially for the meditation group. Crack cocaine use, both groups showing significant improvements, but slight advantage for the meditation group. So I think what we'll do now is see the DVD, hopefully. There was a documentary